So, good morning again. So this morning we're talking about living as love, and I think last week I shared with you that we are kind of going back to the basics and trying to understand how to use those basics to live what I call living the prayerful life. Okay, how do I live in this consciousness where I'm sort of always in prayer, which basically means I'm always open and receptive to divine inspiration in whatever it is that I'm striving to do. And you know, the basics, even though that word basics kind of sounds simple, but when you try to get back to the basics, it can be pretty challenging. And I'll tell you, as I create these lessons, I experiment with them in my own life in terms of what kinds of things are happening in my life that I need to try to apply these to, and even test myself to see if I'm able to do it. You get what I'm saying, you know? So anyway, so the key here is, you know, how do I live this prayerful life? Because we're so entrenched in this unlimited number of choices in the material life that takes us away from being more in touch with the profound dynamics that are happening within us. In the book I told you about, The Yoga of Jesus, The Hidden Teachings by Paramahansa Yogananda, you know, he talks about these great mystics who have the ability to basically live in the life of prayer, live in that spiritual realm, and still function in everyday life. You know, and he said that was what Jesus was a master of. He could, you know, be in that spiritual realm, but still function in everyday life, as opposed to the monastic life where you go out into a cave and try to become spiritual. So that's our striving, is how do I move myself into that spiritual dynamic, but still be in the world, but functioning from that space, okay? So whereas last week we talked about living by faith as a path to living the prayerful life, this week we're going to talk about living as love as the path to living the prayerful life. And this idea of living as love is several levels above this idea of being in love, because living in love, there's no specific target. You know, you say, oh, I'm in love. Who are you in love with? I'm in love with him or her or this or that or my car or, you know, whatever, okay? And so it's beyond that idea. You know, there's no target, and, you know, there's this idea of just being love no matter what. Already you hear the difficulty, right? Okay. So in the past lesson, you know, in past lessons we read from the Revealing Word, it said in divine mind, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it. Love is the greatest harmonizing principle available to us. Love is the greatest harmonizing principle available to me. Love is the greatest harmonizing principle available to me. Say that with me. Love is the greatest harmonizing principle available to me, okay? So remember Paul, we're going to look at some things we've heard before. Remember Paul's explanation of this in 1 Corinthians 13:13. He says, and now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So the way of looking at Paul's statement is, in our relationships, we should always hope for and desire the highest good for each other, no matter what has transpired between us, all right? But if someone with whom you're in a relationship somehow disappoints you, Paul is saying it is still your spiritual commission to be love, no matter what, okay? So the basics do not give you an excuse. That's what we're trying to get at, okay? Yes, we will rationalize as to why, and a lot of times we will accept each other's rationale as to why you cannot love or you're feeling where you're feeling in this situation, but that does not negate, the facts never negate the truth, okay? And so you ask, well, you know, it's because the key here is no matter what is occurring in the world, who has hurt us, whoever has angered us, who has betrayed us or let us down, it doesn't change that idea that love never fails. Now, Paul taught us, and you're familiar with this, Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. Now, evil meaning those things which you could say, this person did this, or this organization did this. Somebody said to me yesterday, Pam and I said we were going to go to Carrabba's and eat. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm on the outs with Carrabba's right now. Because, I ordered something, and when I went to pick it up, they said, oh, they don't, anyway, you see what I'm saying, right? So she fell out of love with Carrabba's. Right? So that's the whole idea, is that, love doesn't delight in those kind of things, or whatever it might be. It only rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes for the better, always perseveres. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Okay? Now, of course, it doesn't mean that there are not times when you will be disappointed, hurt, angered, or something has occurred in a relationship between you and somebody else that sets you off. It doesn't mean that that's not going to happen. However, it does mean that regardless of what happened, from a spiritual perspective, love remains the abiding, enduring, compelling force within you. So it's saying, all right, this just happened, okay? But I can't let it separate me from this divine process that's happening within me. That's sort of the idea. So we're not negating the human side, but the human side always has to get its direction from the spiritual side. The spiritual side says, yes, I understand you're upset, but that's not where we're seeking to operate from, okay? So you always have to go back to that. So love gives you the strength to override your perception of what you think is happening. Love is your spiritual guide to bring you back to to God's reality, and God only has one reality, and that is God is love. Now, notice I didn't say God loves you. I said God is love. The loves you part, is that a verb, or what is that, Joy? Verb, okay. God loves you is an activity that happens through you to the people in your life. All right? That process is always unfolding. And so often love to us means connecting with those folks who will fulfill our need for love in the manner in which we consciously or unconsciously want to be loved. So a lot of times we're seeking out relationships, and that's with anything, your boss, your coworker, whatever. You're always seeking out these relationships with what you perceive love should look like. Even when you go into a store to be served, you want to be served in the way you want to be served, okay? And that really is asking for love. Cop stops you, and you're saying to yourself, oh, I hope this cop is going to love me, right? Right? And if the cop comes up and says, you were doing, 30 miles over the speed limit, yes, officer, I understand. He says, okay, I'm going to let you go this time. And you're like, oh, he loved me, right? But if he gives you a ticket, then you say, he didn't love me. But so you see what I'm saying? It's in all applications, no matter where you come into contact with another human being. So have you ever thought to yourself, though, that unfortunately many of us, and I mean many of us, are merely spoiled brats in adult bodies? Have you ever, even looking at the news, sometimes you go, wow. You don't say that to yourself, but that's kind of what's going on in your head, all right? Still acting out our childhood frustrations. And our hindrance is seeing our childlike behavior is the illusion we operate under, believing that we are adults, mature, grown, self-righteous. We're trapped in our illusions that as adults we are in control of our emotions and our feelings. Is that an incorrect statement? Okay. Now, how many people saw the movie Instinct? Okay. So it's an old movie. There's a scene where Anthony Hopkins, who is supposed to be a psychotic killer, has subdued and threatened to break the neck of Cuba Gooding, the psychiatrist who's trying to heal him. With his arms firmly around, choking the life out of the psychiatrist, the supposed killer says, I will let you go if you will write down the correct answer to this question. What have I just taken away from you? So the first answer the psychiatrist desperately writes is, my freedom. Wrong answer, says the attacker. You never were free. Next, the psychiatrist writes down, my control. Wrong answer, says the attacker. You never had control. In desperation, feeling the life being choked out of him, The psychiatrist thinks and then writes, my illusions. To which the psychotic killer kisses on the cheek and says, you got it. That's powerful, all right? How often have we allowed ourselves to become disturbed by someone in our lives because we thought they took away our control or took away our freedom? In essence, what was really happening is that the behavior that was going on really helped us to understand that we never did really have freedom or control. Control means that I can master my world, right? But as soon as something happens that throws you off, you lost what you thought you had, which was control, okay? And I think that we're all unconsciously in a constant search for relationships that will meet our preconceived notions of how we need people to be to fit into the role that we need them to fill. Again, we don't think about these things. It's just how we go about life, right? I either can work with you or I can't work with you, right? And when we think we have found such a person, we immediately inflict our standards upon him or her, and the illusions of freedom and control go out the window. And yes, I agree that we may not know that this is what we're doing, but that is the nature of conditional love. Conditional love doesn't even realize that it's acting on conditions. We don't realize that we're acting on conditions, do we? You know, we just go about our life wanting things to be the way we want them to be. And if they're not the way we want them to be, then we get all out of shape, okay? So I'm going to share with you a modified version of the words that I use when I do a wedding ceremony, I perform. I begin by saying to the couple, this is a very special day. And that's a very true and very universal statement, because every time we decide to commit to a relationship, whether it's with individual, in an intimate relationship, or a relationship with an organization, the place where you work, the gym that you go work out, where you purchase your items, the church you go to, the congregation, the minister, whatever the relationship is, when we consciously decide to enter into it, it is for us a very special day. You ever find that restaurant and go, man, I like this restaurant, I'm coming back here. You just fell in love, right? Because it met your situation, okay? So in a moment of time in which we feel we have found that person or place or situation, we have this perceived notion of a perfect union. However, what we need to understand is the idea of perfection when it comes to relationships is an illusion. And we can think back over many of the relationships we had, like I said, whether it's with a person or an organization or a political party, or many of us have fallen out of love with the previous spiritual places we used to go. You know what I'm saying? It's all kinds of things that will cause you to fall out of that, because you say that you're in this perfect relationship, but perfection is an illusion. Now, if let's evaluate this idea of the perfect person for a moment, regardless of the relationship, meaning intimate friendship, co-worker, whatever. The author and a Unity minister, Eric Butterworth, says, the perfect person does not need anyone. We're always looking for the perfect person. You've heard that said, right? Oh, I'm looking for the perfect person. The perfect person does not need anyone, because one who has already reached perfection does not even need to be in this plane of existence. All right? We are here because of our imperfections. And whether you realize it or not, we seek to establish relationships with those people who are compassionate enough, tolerant enough, understanding enough, and loving enough to be patient with our imperfections. Right, sweetie? Yes. Yeah. So the author, Dr. Carol Pearson, who used to come here many, many years ago, she wrote the book called The Hero Within. And it says, in our looking for relationships, we're choosing to make a commitment to someone or someones, and by this action, we're making a commitment to risk taking a journey into the unknown. You don't really know what's going to happen when you enter into a relationship with whatever the situation is. And in so doing, we sacrifice the idea of being in relationship with the perfect people or perfect person or whatever, and instead we enter into relationships with real, imperfect human beings. folks who have many numerous faults and shortcomings, but in spite of all the imperfections, you find yourself deeply in love and enjoying that relationship anyway. Okay? And the same goes for places, things, organizations, whatever you become attached to, you just have to understand that stuff is going to happen. Something happened at school, and I know it was a major project I was working on, and the three experts that had guided me through it wrote me a letter, said, "We are so sorry we guided you through the wrong procedure after I'd done all this work." And I wrote them back, and I said, "That is perfectly okay." I said, "Life happens." You know? So that creates between us now a whole nother dynamic, as opposed to me going, "Well, I went on through all that work. Now you're going to tell me you did the wrong thing," right? But you see the difference? It's sort of like, how do you want to be seen in the world? How do you want to show up in the world? Okay? And when people come together recognizing they have a multitude of varying energies, dynamics, peculiarities, but are willing to be changed and healed at the depth of their own being, they can create a magical bond of closeness, wonder, and joy. And you got to think to yourself, not that I need to change this person. I have to be able to open to change within myself, because that's the only person I have any real relationship with. So in the scripture we are familiar with, the 23rd Psalm, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." But even though we believe that God is always with us, protecting us and comforting us, we still feel more comfortable and reassured when we have the presence of God with skin on. Okay? We are God with skin on. Okay? And it's recorded in John 14:9. Jesus said to Philip, "He who has seen me has seen the Father. Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me?" And Jesus said, if it is true of me, then it's also true of you. Okay? Now think about that. Ask yourself, do I believe that this person in my life is God and God is in him or her? And also, do I believe that I am God and God is in me? We are God pressing out into the universe. And there are no gods pressing out into the universe. There is only God pressing out into the universe, dreaming the dream that he is Dee Dee and Joy and Chad. And you get what I'm saying? God is dreaming the dream that is each one of us. Even Oprah was saying to a graduation class she was doing, she says, "We are spiritual beings," say it with me, "having a human experience." Okay, we are God pressing out into existence. Because remember, God is pure, invisible, dynamic, spiritual energy that is seeking to be manifest. And it only can be manifest through us. Okay? So you have to keep asking yourself, am I open and receptive to being the instrument, the channel through which God is pressing out? And God is always going to press out as love. All right? But that has to be our willingness to let that process happen. We are the Holy Spirit pressing into each other's lives, helping each other through the shadow of death experience. Okay? And it's important to note that when we find ourselves walking through the valley of the shadow of death, the shadow and the darkness we may be experiencing is being created by our known negative, fearful, unloving thoughts, blocking the light of God from shining into our lives. See, so God is always going to be love, but if you throw up this filter that says, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm disturbed, I'm hurt, you have just blocked that light. Okay? So the key to the process is, which I say every Sunday, just be still. And let that light shine through. And you will get that guidance in so many little nuances in your life. Like Thursday, I was going into a lab where we were going to work on this project. And I had a big stack of stuff that I had worked on for months, putting all this together. And I said, well, I got it all on a USB drive, and I had emailed all of the forms to myself. I don't really need to take this. And I'm trying to get out of the car, and something said, take it, take it. Take it. You need to take it with you. I said, no, I don't need it. You need to take it. Right? So finally, knowing, I said, okay, I took it. And sure enough, when I got in that lab, I needed that stack of stuff I had done, So that's what I'm saying. It works. This process works with you all the time. We just need to learn how to listen, okay? So the wonderful advantage to living as love is that the negative thinking of the people in your life will not block the light of God from shining on your path, okay? So when someone is feeling lost and afraid because there is darkness in their life that is blocking the light of God from shining on their path, it is your job to remain strong in the light so that you can reach out your hand and pull them from the darkness back into the light, okay? Living as love means it is not for you to enter into the darkness of the other and become lost and afraid with him or her. Rather, it's for you to be the one who is strong in the healing light of love and to remain strong in that light so you can extend your loving, guiding hand to your mate, your parent, your sibling, your friend, your boss, your coworker, whoever it is in your life that needs that guiding hand, okay? Remember, you are the light of God for everyone in your life. That sounds like a tall order, doesn't it? It's not a tall order because you're not doing anything but letting. You get it? All you're doing is letting it happen. If we could stop fighting and just let, we'll go, man, this is really easy. Okay? So we as a human race are a multitude of individuals, each on our own individual path, who have decided to partner and travel together in this earth experience to help each other, not to control, possess, stifle, or be more right than each other. All right? However, it is important to note that in our journeys together, we should never ask each other to sacrifice so much of our individual self that we lose consciousness of who we are separate from each other. And that's what we try to do. We try to make you just be like me. All right? Pam and I have been in each other's life for 53 years now, and there's still a lot of stuff she does. I go, why did you do that? And the stuff I do, she goes, what was that all about? Right? Okay? You just don't, there's things that you get to where you begin to understand how you flow in many things, but there are many things that you just will not. For young married couples in the room, you will just not get to a place where you're doing everything and think everything exactly the same. But you have to be okay with it. It's like a movie, I don't remember, I think it was a TV series, and there were two divorce lawyers, the husband and the wife. And then when they left, one of the lawyers was very young, the other one was very, older, much older. And the young one said to the older lawyer, how did your generation get to a place where, you can stay married so long? And he goes, we stopped expecting so much of each other and just began accepting each other as we are. All right? So that's the process. We are each we each have our own uniqueness that we need to express. We come together as one, but we are still many souls, each on our individual journey. And we're here to help each other. So don't let anyone demand that someone give up his or her uniqueness to become something that you need them to be just so you can experience the illusion of control. That's what we're saying. No, you can't be like that because that interferes with what I need. And Pam, jokingly, she said this to me. It was about dinner. I would do a lot of the cooking, but we always eat the same thing. And one night she said, well, I want this, I want that. And she says, well, you know what, you do you and I'll do me. And I said to her, that is such a powerful statement, to allow each other to do their own thing, okay? So it's only by knowing our own uniqueness, our own completeness separately, that we come together in a relationship based on interdependence rather than codependence, okay? It's only by knowing our own completeness separately that we can know love without fear, love without control, love without possessiveness, love without illusion. And it's only by knowing our own completeness separately that we can know how to be love for each other. It's one thing to be in love, but it's a whole nother thing to be love. And as Eric Butterworth says, you don't want to fall in love. Because if you fell in love, you can fall right out of love just the same, okay? You want to understand, how can I be love? And something else for us to consider is that the beginning and ending of relationships has nothing to do with the beginning and ending of love. So often we walk away from a relationship feeling disappointed, devastated because of something that happened, feeling that love that flowed between us that we cherish so much has ended. However, it's important to understand that you are love. The problem we have when we fall in love, whatever it is we fall in love with, is we take our sense of I am and we give it to that person or thing. Then if we get upset and they walk away, it's almost like they walked away or they're walking with our I am. You get that idea? Okay? But you have to realize I am love. You do not just love or have loving relationships. You are the divine idea of love. Why? Because God is love, and God is a life force that is firing your being. You are alive because of God, and God is love. All right? So you are love. So the very fact that you are here, living and breathing, is a factual indication that love is alive and well in you. And whether or not you're aware of the presence of God love in you does not negate the fact that God is present in you as love. So, when you say something, I just don't feel loved. And, we watched at New Amsterdam. Who watches New Amsterdam? Yeah, New Amsterdam is a great hospital movie. And it was a psychiatrist between, two individuals in a relationship. And actually, one was a psychiatrist for the hospital, and the other was his partner. And they got trapped in a situation in the hospital where they had another young psychiatrist that the older psychiatrist had to fire her. But in the situation where they were trapped and these two were fighting against each other, the young psychiatrist getting ready to be fired began to ask questions about them that eventually brought them to a place. Pam and I were just fascinated. It brought them to a place of understanding what was causing the rift in their relationship between one who is a psychiatrist, a doctor and his mate, and they were in this thing, but this young psychiatrist he was getting ready to fire was able to see what was causing the dynamics between them, and they ended up making up. And of course, he said when the emergency was over, he goes, "Well, you just passed, right?" But it was fascinating because it helped us understand, even while I was listening, that even when you've been together for a long time, there are things that we have going on inside of us, as Ed Rabel used to say, soul secrets that nobody knows but you, And if we ever get to a point where we can share those soul secrets, a lot of times in the relationships, because those soul secrets are causing the rift in all our relationships, because they are in so well into our subconscious mind that we're not aware of them, but they're still organic and they're still affecting what's happening in our lives. So that's why that prayer again, Father, into thy hands, I commit my spirit, soul, mind, and body. Reveal in me that which needs to be revealed, and heal in me that which needs to be healed. Heal me deeply. Okay? That's a prayer that will help bring that up. So our work as we grow in spirit is to unlearn the false ideas we believe about love and to release the conditions we establish in our minds and our hearts about the expression of love. Love is not the person or condition. Love is God. God is seeking to press out into our lives. And our people in our lives that we share our love with, without attachment or acceptance, the idea of I'm going to accept you or reject you, if we can get past all of that, we will find an incredible love that we can share with others. So the flow of love is not dependent on the receiver. The flow of love is always dependent on the giver. Okay? The source of love is the very foundation of our being, and God will continue to send love into our lives for as long as we are alive, and even beyond when we no longer walk this plane of existence. How many people have people in their lives who have passed away, but you can still feel their love? It never dies. Okay? And the last point, it's important to note that all relationships and circumstances in our lives are within our capacity to love. Yes, if we get together and chat, I would probably say, "Oh, yeah, I don't know about that," right? But it's within our capacity to love. Are you understanding the dynamics of that? No matter what happens, right? And, they may not be in our desire to love, but they are within our divine capacity to love. And it is time in our spiritual development that we accept the truth that anything we express that is less than love is our conscious decision to ease God out. Ego, all right? Ease God out. To ease love out in favor of our own personal agenda. So you have to think about that. The situation, you go, yeah, I know what I should be doing, but, this is how I feel. So you just ease God out in order to do your own thing. Not your will, but mine be done. That's what you're saying. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and that really is the truth. So we're going to end with this affirmation. With joy, I give my gift of love to everyone every day. With joy, I give my gift of love to everyone every day. Say that with me. With joy, I give my gift of love to everyone every day. Amen.